My boss started calling me for private meetings. Turns out she has a crush on me and wants to date me, but I have a wife. Hey everyone, I'm reaching out because I need some advice and I'm not sure where to turn. My name is Ryan, and I've been married to my wife Sarah for about 7 years. We have a pretty solid relationship, or at least I thought we did. Recently, things started to feel off at work, and it's been a whirlwind since then. Here's the situation. I work for a medium-sized tech company, and my boss, Jessica, has always been professional and straightforward. About a month ago, she started calling me into her office for private meetings more frequently. At first, I didn't think much of it. She seemed to be giving me more responsibility, and I assumed it was just part of my career progression. But then, things took a weird turn. Jessica's demeanor changed during these meetings. She was more personal, asking about my weekend plans and even making small talk about my relationship with Sarah. It was strange, but I brushed it off as her trying to build a better rapport. However, the frequency of these meetings increased, and her tone became more flirtatious. I started feeling uncomfortable, but I wasn't sure how to address it. The situation escalated when she began complimenting my appearance and making suggestive comments. It felt like a line had been crossed, but I wasn't ready to jump to conclusions just yet. I decided to keep a mental note of everything, hoping that I might be overreacting. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a much larger and more troubling situation. A few weeks ago, things took a turn for the worse. I came into the office on a Monday morning, ready to tackle the week. Sarah and I had a quiet, relaxing weekend, and I was in a good mood. But as I settled into my desk, I noticed something odd. Jessica's behavior seemed more intense. She was watching me closely from her office, and whenever I looked up, she would quickly turn away. That day, she called me in for another private meeting. This time, though, it felt different. Her usual flirtatious tone was replaced with an almost pleading one. She mentioned having some personal issues and asked if I could help her with something outside of work. I was taken aback but agreed to hear her out. As we talked, she revealed that she had recently gone through a tough breakup and needed someone to confide in. I listened, trying to be supportive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her personal problems were becoming entwined with our work relationship. Later that week, things took a more alarming turn. Jessica sent me a text asking if we could meet up for coffee. I was initially hesitant but agreed, thinking it was a chance to clear the air. When we met, she brought up the idea of having dinner together. At that point, it was clear to me that she was crossing professional boundaries. I felt conflicted, but didn't know how to address it without creating an awkward situation at work. When I told Sarah about the dinner invitation, she seemed unusually calm, but supportive. Her reaction was more reserved than I expected, and it left me wondering if I was missing something. The turning point came during a particularly intense meeting with Jessica. She had called me into her office to discuss a new project, but the conversation quickly veered off course. She began expressing her feelings for me more directly, saying things like, "I feel like we have a special connection," and "You make me feel understood in a way no one else does." I was stunned. My heart raced, and I tried to keep my composure. I gently told her that I was happily married and not interested in pursuing anything beyond a professional relationship. Her reaction was a mix of surprise and frustration. She tried to downplay her feelings, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. But the discomfort in her eyes was unmistakable. As I left her office, I felt a surge of guilt and anxiety. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about how to protect my marriage and maintain my professional integrity. The situation was taking a toll on me emotionally, and I knew I had to talk to Sarah about what was happening. When I brought it up to Sarah, her response was both surprising and troubling. She seemed more concerned about the potential fallout than about Jessica's behavior. She asked me to consider whether I was making things up or exaggerating, and this response threw me off balance. I felt like I was being gaslighted and began questioning my own perception of the situation. In the days that followed, Jessica's behavior became more erratic. She would still call me into her office, but now the conversations were charged with tension. She seemed to be testing boundaries, and I was increasingly uncomfortable with how personal and invasive her questions became. The confrontation left me feeling shaken, but I knew I had to navigate this carefully to avoid further complications. After the confrontation with Jessica, the emotional toll began to weigh heavily on me. The awkwardness at work was palpable, and every interaction with her felt strained. I was constantly on edge, trying to avoid any situation that could be misconstrued. The stress of managing this delicate situation, combined with the impact on my marriage, was taking a significant emotional toll. I found myself ruminating over every interaction with Jessica, replaying our conversations in my head, trying to analyze where things went wrong. The anxiety from this constant overthinking was affecting my productivity and my mood. I couldn't focus on work, and the unease I felt around Jessica was becoming unbearable. When I spoke to Sarah about the ongoing issues, her responses were confusing. It seemed like she was more concerned about the potential for professional fallout rather than the emotional strain I was experiencing. She kept insisting that I needed to address the situation with Jessica more assertively, but her advice felt detached from the emotional reality I was facing. I began to wonder if Sarah's calm demeanor was masking something deeper. I felt a growing distance between us, as if the situation with Jessica was creating a wedge in our relationship. Our conversations became tense, and we struggled to connect emotionally. It was disheartening to see how something that started as a professional issue was now affecting the core of our marriage. The emotional impact extended beyond just the stress of dealing with Jessica. It began to seep into my personal life, affecting my interactions with friends and family. I found myself withdrawing, unable to fully engage in social activities or enjoy the things I once loved. The once stable and happy life I had with Sarah now felt fragile and uncertain. I knew I needed to find a way to address this situation, not just for my professional sanity, but for the health of my marriage and my own emotional well-being. The stress from the situation with Jessica and the emotional strain on my marriage reached a breaking point. I knew I had to take decisive action, both for my sanity and to protect my relationship with Sarah. After a lot of soul-searching, I decided that another confrontation with Jessica was necessary. I scheduled a meeting with Jessica, but this time I was prepared to be more assertive. I made it clear that our previous conversation had not resolved the issues and that her behavior had continued to make me uncomfortable. I wanted to set clear boundaries and make it obvious that I was committed to my marriage and not open to any personal advances. During the meeting, I expressed my feelings firmly but respectfully. I told her that her continued advances were inappropriate and unprofessional. I emphasized that I valued my marriage and wanted to maintain a strictly professional relationship moving forward. Jessica's initial reaction was defensive. She insisted that she was just trying to be friendly and that her feelings were genuine but not intended to cause any harm. Her responses felt like a mix of denial and frustration. She tried to downplay the situation, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. I knew that this confrontation was uncomfortable for both of us, but it was necessary. I had to protect my personal and professional boundaries. After the meeting, I felt a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. I had stood up for myself and my marriage, but the situation was far from resolved. The tension at work remained, and I wasn't sure how Jessica would react going forward. I also had to consider how this confrontation might affect my professional relationships and career. I hoped that by addressing the issue directly, I could regain some control over the situation and start to rebuild the emotional stability in my marriage. However, I was also aware that the road ahead would likely be challenging. The days following my confrontation with Jessica were filled with an unsettling quiet. At work, the atmosphere was tense. Jessica seemed distant and unapproachable, and the usual camaraderie with my colleagues felt strained. It was as if my confrontation had cast a shadow over the entire office. Jessica's behavior toward me became noticeably colder. She avoided eye contact and was curt during meetings. The previously friendly interactions with my coworkers also changed. They seemed to be aware of the tension, but were hesitant to discuss it openly. I felt isolated and uncomfortable, as if everyone was walking on eggshells around me. During this period, I started receiving subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, hints from Jessica that she was displeased with how things had unfolded. She would occasionally make passive-aggressive comments in meetings, and I noticed her excluding me from important discussions. The professional environment became increasingly hostile. The emotional toll of this new work dynamic was heavy. I was no longer just dealing with the fallout from Jessica's advances, but also grappling with the impact on my career and professional relationships. I felt like I was in a no-win situation, caught between maintaining my integrity and facing the professional consequences of my actions. Sarah noticed the change in my demeanor and was concerned. She encouraged me to stay focused on my career and not let Jessica's behavior affect me. Her support was appreciated, but it didn't completely alleviate the stress I was feeling. It was clear that the situation was taking a toll on our relationship as well. As I navigated this challenging period, I knew that finding a resolution was crucial. I had to address the professional fallout and work toward regaining a sense of normalcy at the office. At the same time, I needed to rebuild my relationship with Sarah and ensure that we were on the same page regarding our future. The fallout from the confrontation with Jessica was far from over, and I was bracing myself for the continued challenges that lay ahead. As the weeks passed, Jessica's behavior at work took a more aggressive turn. She started actively undermining my work, making snide remarks in meetings and giving me less favorable projects. It was clear she was retaliating, and the work environment became even more toxic. One afternoon, during a team meeting, Jessica openly criticized a project I had worked on, pointing out minor errors and making them seem like major issues. Her critique was harsh and seemed intended to embarrass me in front of my colleagues. I tried to stay composed, but it was clear that her personal vendetta was affecting my professional reputation. I confronted Jessica privately once again, this time about her increasingly hostile behavior. I told her that her actions were impacting not only my work, but also my mental health. She brushed off my concerns, saying that she was just trying to maintain high standards and that I needed to improve. This confrontation was different from the last. Jessica was no longer trying to hide her frustration and was openly hostile. Her demeanor was intimidating, and I felt a growing sense of dread whenever I had to interact with her. It was clear that her feelings for me had turned into a grudge, and I was caught in the crossfire. The hostile work environment was affecting my productivity and my mood. I started dreading going to work, and the constant stress was beginning to take a toll on my health. I knew I had to find a way to address this situation, but I was unsure how to proceed. Sarah continued to be a source of support, but the ongoing stress was straining our relationship. I felt like I was fighting a two-front battle, one at work with Jessica and one at home with the emotional fallout. I was determined to find a resolution, but the path forward seemed increasingly unclear. Amid the escalating tension with Jessica, Sarah's response to the situation took a turn that I hadn't anticipated. Despite her initial support, she seemed increasingly detached and distant. It was as if the stress of the situation was creating a rift between us rather than bringing us closer. One evening, after a particularly rough day at work, I came home feeling emotionally drained. I tried to talk to Sarah about the latest developments with Jessica and how her hostility was affecting me. To my surprise, Sarah's reaction was oddly indifferent. She listened but didn't offer much in the way of comfort or advice. Instead, she seemed more focused on her own issues and concerns. Her lack of engagement in our conversations about Jessica left me feeling frustrated and alone. I began to suspect that there was more going on beneath the surface. I wondered if Sarah was feeling overwhelmed by the situation and didn't know how to cope, or if there was something else troubling her. The emotional distance between us began to manifest in other ways. Our once strong connection seemed to be fraying, and our interactions felt more like formalities than genuine conversations. We argued more frequently and struggled to connect on a deeper level. It was clear that the stress from my work situation was seeping into our personal life, but the reasons for Sarah's unusual reactions remained unclear. In an attempt to address this, I suggested we see a marriage counselor to work through our issues. Sarah agreed reluctantly, and we began attending sessions together. The counseling sessions provided a space for us to discuss our feelings and frustrations, but it became apparent that there were underlying issues that went beyond just the situation with Jessica. As we navigated the counseling process, I hoped that it would help us address the emotional strain and rebuild our relationship. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was committed to finding a resolution that would allow us to move forward together. As Sarah and I continued our counseling sessions, we began to peel back layers of our issues. I hoped that therapy would help us address the emotional distance and repair our relationship, but an unexpected revelation threw everything into disarray. During one of our sessions, Sarah revealed something that completely shocked me. She admitted that Jessica had been reaching out to her, trying to persuade her to reconsider our marriage. Jessica had been telling Sarah that I was unhappy and that our relationship was doomed. Sarah had kept these conversations hidden from me, believing that they were part of Jessica's manipulative tactics. I was stunned. The realization that Jessica had been actively trying to interfere in our marriage was a bitter pill to swallow. Sarah explained that she had initially tried to ignore Jessica's attempts to meddle but felt overwhelmed and uncertain about how to handle it. She didn't know how to confront me about it, fearing it would only add to the stress of the situation. This revelation was a turning point. It explained the emotional distance and Sarah's detached reactions to the stress I was facing. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. Not only had Jessica been unprofessional and aggressive, but she had also tried to undermine my marriage from within. The trust I had in my workplace and in Sarah was shaken. The impact of this revelation was profound. I realized that the situation was much more complex than I had initially understood. Jessica's manipulation had created a toxic environment that extended beyond the office and into my personal life. It was clear that we needed to address both the professional and personal ramifications of Jessica's actions. Sarah and I decided to confront Jessica together. We felt that it was necessary to address the full extent of her interference and set clear boundaries. It was time to take decisive action and put an end to the chaos she had created. With the shocking revelation that Jessica had been manipulating Sarah, we decided it was time to confront her together. Sarah and I agreed that addressing the situation head-on was the only way to reclaim our lives and restore some semblance of normalcy. We scheduled a meeting with Jessica and went in with a united front. The atmosphere was tense as we entered her office. Sarah and I sat down, and I could see the apprehension in Jessica's eyes as she realized the gravity of the situation. I started by addressing Jessica's interference in our marriage. I explained that Sarah had revealed the extent of Jessica's attempts to manipulate and undermine our relationship. I made it clear that her actions were unacceptable and that she needed to cease all personal contact with Sarah and me immediately. Jessica's reaction was a mix of defensiveness and frustration. She claimed that she had only been trying to help and that her intentions were misunderstood. She insisted that she was not trying to sabotage our marriage, but was instead concerned for our well-being. Her excuses felt hollow, and it was clear she was trying to deflect blame. Sarah added her perspective, detailing how Jessica's actions had affected her emotionally and how it had impacted our relationship. She emphasized that Jessica's behavior had been invasive and manipulative. The confrontation was intense, with Jessica growing increasingly agitated as we pressed our points. By the end of the meeting, Jessica seemed to be cornered. She agreed to stop contacting Sarah and to focus solely on her professional responsibilities. The conversation was emotionally draining, but it was necessary to set firm boundaries and address the issues head-on. Walking out of Jessica's office, I felt a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. While the confrontation had been necessary, the impact of the situation on our lives was far from over. We had taken a significant step in addressing the problem, but we knew there would be ongoing challenges as we navigated the fallout. Sarah and I were determined to move forward, but the road ahead would require continued effort and communication. We hoped that this confrontation would be the turning point in resolving the chaos that Jessica had created in both our professional and personal lives. With the confrontation behind us, Sarah and I were left to pick up the pieces and try to rebuild our lives. The immediate tension with Jessica had been addressed, but the damage to our relationship and professional environment needed careful attention. In the weeks following the confrontation, Sarah and I focused on repairing our relationship. We continued our counseling sessions, which provided a safe space to explore our feelings and work through the emotional aftermath. The sessions helped us communicate more openly and address the trust issues that had arisen due to Jessica's interference. At work, I noticed a subtle shift. Jessica's demeanor became more restrained, and she avoided direct confrontations with me. While the hostility had decreased, the professional environment remained strained. I began to take steps to re-establish my position and rebuild my reputation. I focused on delivering high-quality work and engaging positively with my colleagues. Sarah and I also made a conscious effort to reconnect on a personal level. We planned activities that we enjoyed together, like weekend getaways and movie nights, to strengthen our bond. These moments of connection were crucial in rebuilding the intimacy and trust that had been affected by the recent turmoil. Despite our efforts, there were lingering challenges. The emotional impact of Jessica's actions was not something that could be quickly forgotten. The scars from the ordeal remained, and it took time for Sarah and me to fully heal. We had to navigate the complexities of moving past the betrayal while continuing to support each other. One of the key lessons from this experience was the importance of communication and trust in a relationship. The ordeal with Jessica had highlighted the need for transparency and support between Sarah and me. We both recognized that maintaining a strong relationship required ongoing effort and understanding. As we moved forward, we hoped that the worst was behind us. The process of rebuilding trust and adapting to the new dynamics at work was ongoing, but we were determined to face these challenges together. The journey was far from over, but with each step, we aimed to create a more resilient and supportive foundation for our relationship. Just when we thought we were beginning to find our footing, another unexpected twist emerged. Jessica's behavior took a new turn when she began spreading rumors about me within the company. These rumors were vague, but damaging. suggesting that I had been involved in unprofessional conduct and that my actions were the cause of the recent disruptions. I first heard about these rumors through a colleague who approached me with concerns. They had heard whispers about my supposed misconduct and were confused about what was really happening. The fact that Jessica was actively undermining my reputation was both infuriating and disheartening. I decided to confront Jessica once more, this time about the rumors she was spreading. When I approached her, she denied everything, but her evasive body language and defensive attitude made it clear that she was involved. I felt a surge of frustration, knowing that her actions were not only unprofessional, but also deeply harmful. The rumors began affecting my relationships with colleagues. I noticed a shift in how people interacted with me, and there was an air of suspicion that hadn't been there before. It was clear that the damage to my reputation was significant, and that rebuilding trust would be even more challenging. Sarah was supportive, but deeply concerned about the impact this would have on my career and our relationship. The stress of dealing with Jessica's continued hostility was taking a toll on both of us. We both felt like we were constantly on the defensive, trying to protect our personal and professional lives from further damage. To address the situation, I decided to escalate the issue to HR. I compiled evidence of Jessica's behavior, including the rumors she had spread, and presented it to the HR department. I hoped that they would take appropriate action and put an end to the smear campaign against me. The process of addressing the rumors and dealing with the fallout was grueling. It was a reminder that the effects of Jessica's interference were far-reaching and required careful management. As we navigated this new challenge, Sarah and I remained committed to supporting each other and finding a path forward. After escalating the issue to HR, I was hopeful that the situation would finally be addressed. HR scheduled a series of meetings to investigate the claims and review the evidence I had provided. The process was slow and meticulous, but it was clear that they were taking the matter seriously. During the investigation, Jessica was questioned about the rumors and her behavior. She initially denied everything, but eventually admitted to spreading false information. HR also interviewed several colleagues who had witnessed the fallout and confirmed that there had been a noticeable shift in the workplace environment. The HR intervention led to several important outcomes. Jessica was formally reprimanded and given a warning about her behavior. They also implemented measures to ensure a more professional and respectful workplace environment. While Jessica's consequences were not as severe as I had hoped, the HR actions provided some relief and validated the concerns I had raised. Despite the intervention, the work environment remained tense. Although the rumors had been addressed, the damage to my professional reputation and relationships with colleagues was not easily repaired. It took time to rebuild trust and re-establish my standing within the company. Sarah and I continued to navigate the challenges posed by Jessica's actions. The stress of the situation had taken a significant toll on both of us, but we were determined to move forward. We focused on rebuilding our connection and finding ways to manage the ongoing stress. The HR intervention was a crucial step in addressing the issue, but it was clear that there was still work to be done. We had to find a way to heal from the experience and rebuild both our personal and professional lives. The journey was far from over, but we remained committed to supporting each other and finding a path forward. As we worked through the aftermath of the HR intervention, we hoped that the worst of the turmoil was behind us and that we could begin to rebuild our lives with a renewed sense of resilience and strength. In the wake of HR's intervention and the ongoing challenges at work, Sarah and I decided it was time to focus on rebuilding our lives. The stress and strain from the past months had taken a toll on our relationship, but we were determined to work through it and emerge stronger. We continued our counseling sessions, which had become an essential part of our healing process. Our counselor helped us address the lingering issues and facilitated open communication between us. We talked about our feelings, fears, and the impact of Jessica's actions on our relationship. Through this process, we were able to better understand each other's perspectives and work on rebuilding trust. At work, I made a conscious effort to reconnect with my colleagues and repair the damage to my professional relationships. I reached out to those who had been affected by the rumors and worked to rebuild my credibility. It was a gradual process, but I noticed a positive shift as colleagues began to see my commitment to professionalism and integrity. Jessica's presence at work became less prominent as time went on. She continued her job, but her interactions with me were limited and professional. The work environment remained somewhat strained, but there was a sense of normalization as we moved past the most turbulent period. Sarah and I also took steps to strengthen our personal connection. We dedicated time to each other, engaged in activities we both enjoyed, and made an effort to rekindle the intimacy and joy in our relationship. The process of rebuilding was ongoing, but we were committed to supporting each other through it. As we worked through the aftermath, we found solace in our renewed sense of connection and understanding. The ordeal with Jessica had been a difficult and painful experience, but it had also taught us valuable lessons about resilience, communication, and trust. With each passing day, we felt more optimistic about our future. The challenges we faced had brought us closer in many ways, and we were hopeful that we could continue to grow and strengthen our relationship. As we moved forward, we remained focused on maintaining the progress we had made and ensuring that we could build a positive and supportive future together. As time passed, Sarah and I continued to navigate the aftermath of Jessica's actions and the challenges we faced together. The experience had been a profound test of our relationship, but it also provided us with an opportunity for growth and reflection. Reflecting on the entire ordeal, I realized how important it was to address issues head-on and communicate openly. The confrontation with Jessica, while difficult, was a necessary step in protecting both my professional integrity and my personal life. It taught me that standing up for oneself and setting clear boundaries is crucial, even when it's uncomfortable. The process of rebuilding our relationship and my professional reputation was a testament to our resilience. Sarah and I worked hard to reconnect and strengthen our bond. The counseling sessions played a key role in helping us navigate our emotions and improve our communication. We emerged from the experience with a deeper understanding of each other and a renewed commitment to our marriage. At work, the efforts to repair relationships and regain credibility paid off. Although it took time, I was able to rebuild trust with my colleagues and move forward with a clearer sense of purpose. The experience also highlighted the importance of maintaining a positive and professional work environment, free from personal conflicts and misunderstandings. The ordeal with Jessica was a challenging chapter in our lives, but it ultimately led to personal growth and strengthened our relationship. We learned valuable lessons about handling conflict, the importance of support in times of stress, and the power of perseverance. As we moved forward, Sarah and I were more focused on maintaining a healthy and supportive relationship. We continued to prioritize our connection and work together to overcome any obstacles that came our way. The experience had shown us that, despite the difficulties, we could face challenges together and come out stronger on the other side. Our journey was far from perfect, but it was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there is an opportunity for growth and renewal. We looked forward to the future with hope and determination, knowing that we had the strength and commitment to build a positive and fulfilling life together.